last and best of all, Almira. Okay, so we have 4 speakers. Each speaker will have about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to set a timer, so after 15 minutes you'll hear an alarm, and that will be your warning to start closing, and then hopefully we'll leave a bit of time for discussion at the end. So the speakers will be, I'll introduce them all in detail in a moment, but Charles Zukoski is Provost and Executive Vice President at the University at Buffalo from the United States. Dr. Chong is President and Acting Provost, Singapore University of Technology and Design. Dr. Tian is Vice President at Westlake University in Hangzhou in China. And Almira Zhantuyakova is a student here at Nazarbayev University, having just graduated in a biology major just recently. So those will be the speakers. The topic is Future Ready Higher Education Institutions. So this is, I think, an evolution of the program. We've heard yesterday, I think, a lot of discussion about the definition of the problem, the fact that the modern university needs to be producing graduates for a very different world to the one for which we were originally designed. And we've heard, as the program's gone on, more and more about solutions. So I'm hoping and expecting that we hear from this panel a solution-oriented approach. So some of the things that they themselves are doing or that they have ideas about that they would suggest that the rest of us should think about. So in that spirit, we're going to start off with Charles. So Charles Zukoski, let me just get my more detailed information about the speakers. I've got to use my notes, Charles, otherwise I'll get it wrong. So as I said, Charles is Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of New York in Buffalo. So SUNY, the State University of New York, which Buffalo is part of, is an enormous education system in New York State. Charles is the Provost there and has been since 2012 at the University of Buffalo, which is the largest component part of the university system. And as the university's second-ranking officer, he's responsible for overseeing all academic and academic support programs. Charles, I think, like many of us, is a believer in the power of higher education to improve society, and he's personally committed to providing the transformative educational experience that we know will prepare our students for future success. He's a member of the National Academy of Engineering. So he is himself a chemical engineer and was named one of the 100 chemical engineers of the modern era by the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. He has a bachelor degree in physics from Reed College and a PhD in chemical engineering from Princeton University. So Charles, over to you to open the session. Thank you very much.
Very good. I want to thank you and thank the organizers for this conference. I'm finding it very stimulating and learning a great deal at it. In thinking about my remarks today, I'm trying to synthesize much of what we've learned over the past day and a half. And we've heard a lot about disruptive economic changes that are coming at us, how the innovation economy and how artificial intelligence are going to change the jobs and careers that we have, and how that has to influence the way we in higher education develop our students and prepare our students in order to be successful. A lot of what we've heard about talks about lifelong learning, preparing students so that they have soft skills, and it tends to suggest a lot of the conversations have shifted us towards emphasizing sort of a liberal arts approach, because we don't know how to teach in deep domain knowledge areas, physics, chemistry, philosophy, that many of the sort of standard degrees that we have, particularly in vocational areas, engineering, that's, I think, applied areas, because we don't know what the future is going to bring, so why should we prepare our students with those deep domain knowledges? It's all going to change anyway. Instead, we ought to be working with our students so that they're curious, they're inquisitive, they have the soft skills to listen and to hear and to interact, and through knowledge of lifelong learning, they will go on to be successful, and our society will be successful. I find that I believe that in that sort of analysis, we tend to discount the assumption that students have the deep domain knowledge that they have, and we're trying to add new things onto what we expect our students to have. So the concept of the T individual remains very important, where you have broad capabilities that are educated, that you learn about, that teaches you about the broad understandings that humans have to interact and take our society forward, and then you have to have the vertical section of the T that gives you the domain knowledge that, if nothing else, gets you your first job. At my university, the University of Buffalo, we have about 20,000 undergraduates, so we educate at scale. We recently rebuilt our what in the United States is called the general education curriculum. And so this is the core knowledge that we define an undergraduate should have if we're going to call them educated. Okay, and that was the philosophy that we had going in to the restructuring of our general education program. It involves an introductory course where students work with a faculty member in small sections. It involves a series of skill-based courses where you learn how to write, you learn scientific literacy. It involves pathways, that you have a series of linked courses that teach you about globalization or teach you about a subject, where these courses are linked over 2 or 3 semesters, where you have to pursue a particular topic in different disciplines through these different courses, and then there's writing layered into this. You learn how to write all the way through, and then finally there's a summative course or a capstone course at the end, where the students are asked to reflect on how all of this knowledge is brought together and how the learnings across the different disciplines are important in just their thinking about their education. And so we've reorganized this. Again, we did it at scale. It required changing literally over 1,000 courses. Each year, each semester, we have over 12,000 students taking general education. So you can imagine the sort of enterprise it is to restructure the general education program, but it works well. It's going well right now. One of the components that we built into it was an assessment program, so that we assess components of it. The first component that we assessed was the writing program, and it was sort of terrifying. The numbers came back that the students, only 25% of the students met the learning outcomes that the faculty had set. Only 25%. So then we had hard data on that. And so this has resulted in actually a massive restructuring of the entire writing program in the English department at UB. And so this ongoing assessment is helping us ensure that the students are gathering, that are educated. As I said, this is the core that we think of as preparing the students to be an educated individual. The UB curriculum, that we call it, is about 1/3 of the overall credit hours that you have to get a bachelor's degree at UB. So then you take 2/3 of your courses in the vertical T, gaining deep domain knowledge in whatever field that you have. We're finding that students at UB are shifting more and more into more, let's call them applied disciplines. So they're moving out of the humanities and humanistic social sciences and moving more strongly into STEM-like areas, because it is felt by the students that those STEM-like areas are important for getting your first job. Okay, and this actually leads to deep concerns on my part and on the part of the faculty that we aren't preparing a large enough fraction of a cohort of graduates in areas that are very important for society, to understand politics, history, narrative, cultures, languages, that sort of things. The numbers of graduates that we have in those areas are going down, and that is a real problem. A lot of this is driven in the United States by the debt that students take on when they're getting an education. So even the public schools like UB, about half our students graduate with debt. Of those that have debt, the median debt is about $25,000. So that's enough of a burden that some families simply can't educate their kids, and it's such an expense that the risk of not getting that first job is so high that you shift out of areas where you don't think there's a vocation into those where you can, you think you will get the vocation. Okay, so with our model, this T-shaped model that we have, 1/3 general education, 2/3 in a major, will our students be successful going into the future? And I argue yes. I've had 6 jobs. The market has changed tremendously. Cell phones didn't exist when I was born. Google didn't exist. Many of us in this room have had tremendous changes in our lives that have already been brought on by changes in the economy. And so by and large, I think this T-shaped model is probably the direction that we have to go. 1/3, 2/3, okay. We could work on the balance between how much is general and how much is vertical, and we probably should. But this gets to the point that I really would like to emphasize, that in order to make any sort of shift, I have to change the curriculum. Faculty own the curriculum. Faculty own the method of teaching, the content of what is taught, the methods of assessment, the way courses are stacked that lead to the degree. Right, so it's a very faculty-centric model, at least at my university. And faculty have their terminal degree. That terminal degree in most disciplines is going to be the PhD. When I hire faculty, I hire them on the basis of their ability to be creative. I hire them on their research capacity. That is how, if you go into a tenure track job, a lot of the tenure decision, you can't be a bad teacher. But you have to be an adequate teacher, but you have to be a superb scholar. Okay? And so we emphasize the disciplines, emphasize scholarship. The faculty, therefore, work on scholarship, and they're really good at it. Generations of disciplinarians have been working to get really good in their particular discipline. And they have developed all sorts of esoteric areas of knowledge and languages that they talk to each other in. Okay, but it's a research sort of focus. And by the way, society cares. In an innovation economy that we're living in, more and more society, more and more governments and localities are turning to the university to be the source, not just of the well-educated labor force, but they're turning to them for the ideas, the inventions, the technologies that will drive the economy forward. So that creativity on the part of the faculty is really important, and we heavily incentivize it. What we don't incentivize is how to teach. So the PhD education teaches you to do research, not how to think about how to change the curriculum, not how to think about how to teach flipped classrooms, or how much the vertical T versus the horizontal should you have to produce in future-ready graduate. And I think that moving forward, we have this idea of where university educations need to be. Our challenge is getting there from here, and one of the big burdens is who is going to do the education in the future. I'm educating them today, and I haven't changed that educational model that I was educated in 40 years ago. Okay, so how are we, if you continue to educate your PhDs, those that will be the professoriate, in the same way that we did 30 and 40 years ago, how can we expect universities to change? And so my concrete solution of one of the things that we need to do in academia, and this will be a major structural change, is to think about what is the content of the PhD and what does it mean to be trained to be a professor. So that was look forward to questions.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. And you didn't even get as far as my 15-minute warning, so we're going to save some time for the end. So thank you very much for that. The second speaker then is going to be Professor Chong. Let me just get my notes on him. We have quite a Singapore influence in the program that we've heard over the last couple of days, and this is the latest example. So Professor Chong is the president of the Singapore University of Technology and Design, and has been in that role since April of last year, and before that was the founding provost of that university since 2010. And he played an instrumental role in steering the strategic development and the operationalization of SUTD, which is a new university in 2010. As president, he provides leadership and guidance in the next phase of the university's growth and development, as well as ensuring continuity in the pursuit of the vision, mission, and strategic goals. Prior to joining SUTD, Prof. Chong had been the executive director of A-STAR's Science and Engineering Research Council and Data Storage Institute for 15 years. A-STAR, for those of you that don't know, is a very highly regarded science and engineering research organization in Singapore. And prior to that, he had a 30-year academic career with the National University of Singapore as a professor of electrical and computer engineering. He received his B.Eng from Tokyo Institute of Technology, his M.Eng from NUS, and his SCD from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, all of them in electrical engineering. So, Professor Chong, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much. Very good morning. Still morning. Yeah, and thank you for inviting me to be here, and also for the opportunity to share Singapore University of Technology Design's model of education with a mission to transform higher education to prepare future-ready graduates. I think we all know that we are living in a very fast evolving world. Many call this the VUCA world. I think we heard this term many times in this forum. Indeed, I think the 21st century, we look at the challenges, they are fast changing, multifaceted, and multidisciplinary. And we already know many of these challenges, like the tsunami of digital transformation, the fourth industrial revolution, aging, and so on and so forth. But I think the greatest challenge for the 21st century is actually the unknown. And the unknown is unfolding very fast. And I think the greatest unknown today, if you ask me, is the geopolitics that we are facing today. So I think you agree that given such a dynamics of this 21st century, university must transform. We cannot continue to do the same old thing. The same curriculum that has been around for 200 years. In fact, last time we have a very nice dinner hosted by President Katsu. We have a good wine. But you agree to me that university cannot be a bottle of wine. The older, the better. Right? It has to be, evolving, and we need a new model of education to prepare future-ready graduate like you, so that we can bring the world forward. So if you are given this opportunity to create a world-class university from scratch for the 21st century, what will you do? So when you start a new university, a lot of challenges, but you have the opportunity to ask big questions. For example, what should be the intellectual footprint? What should be the structure of your organization, your curriculum and degree, teaching approach, research approach, lifelong learning, because I'm talking about future, ready, industry partnership, and also use of digital technology. So for SUTD, we had this opportunity to start this university, and we embarked on this journey in 2009. So we're happy to say that we are now 10 years old. It's still a young university, but we took a very bold vision to define the future of architecture, engineering, and computing education. Because our mission is to nurture the keywords here, technically grounded leaders and innovators to serve society needs. Now, with a strong focus on design through an integrated multidisciplinary education, research, and innovation. So, we are the fourth research-intensive university in Singapore. Just like NU, when you start a new university, you need to have good strategic partners. So we partner with MIT in the east, in the west, and in the east we partner with Zhejiang University to start the university. So because we want the best of east and west. Now, one of the things that we do very well, I think, in SUTD is the integration of education, research, and innovation. Now, all universities are doing research, education, and innovation. But how you tightly integrate all three together, I think, is a key point to make the university future ready. So let me just run through a few slides about how we do it in SUTD. First, talk about education. We have 5 initiatives that we implement in SUTD. One, we really like to talk about multidisciplinary education. So we break down the silos, we bring together cross-disciplinary learning in the entire undergraduate learning. Second, we believe we need to develop skills and attitudes beyond book knowledge. And third, we offer flexibility, choices, and diversification for students to choose their pathway. And we invest heavily in pedagogy innovation for active learning and also for lifelong learning. They are together. And last but not least, I mentioned already, the industry impact of the university. So we have this integrated partnership with industry in the 3 things I mentioned: education, research, and entrepreneurship. So let me go through these 5 initiatives. First, to break down silos and bring together cross-disciplinary learning, the digital competency, design and human-centered education in SUTD. Now, this slide shows you the traditional engineering disciplines. Usually, you enroll in a program, you do 4 years of study, you graduate with a degree. So in SUTD, we do the other way around. We do an outside-in approach. We ask what the world needs first. I think we all agree that the world needs the following: products, services, systems, and built environment. And instead of the silos, let's cut across the disciplines. So we have 4 majors in SUTD. So unlike the traditional engineering degree or departments, we have no school. And we have no deans. So we are deans, sorry, a no job in SUTD. But you can be the pillar head, which is part of the senior academic leadership. So we have 4 pillars we call engineering product development, engineering system design, information system technology design, and architecture and software design. But this is a multidisciplinary approach from day one. So we must have a very strong foundation for students to build that foundation to learn, continue to learn this kind of multidisciplinary domain knowledge. At the same time, we do not ask the student to elect their pillars. Only after 1 year, which is 3 terms in our case, then they select each pillar. Because I think you cannot expect a 17, 18 years old student to know exactly what they want to do. So the first year, let them discover their interests. Now, because we talk about design, you need to have a heavy dose of we call HAS, which is Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. So 22% of the curriculum in HAS, because we talk about design thinking, design innovation, we have to consider human desire, human needs. So we call this the big design, big D in SUTD. Now I talk about digital era that we are living. So we also mindful that all students today, undergraduate, must have the digital competency. It's almost like a second language that you must have. So in SUTD, we offer compulsory courses for all students: architecture, engineering students to learn the AI, machine learning, statistics in their curriculum. So the design is big D, we call, because we are designed for everyone, every subject, like physics, maths, every subject, across subjects, across years, and across pillars. And when you talk about design, it's not just technology. You look at the human side, you look at the business side. And this is where design innovation occurs at the intersection of these three. So students typically complete more than 20 design projects, so are pretty hands-on. Now, developing skills and attitude beyond book knowledge. Now, after, I think, Second World War, most of the university moved toward advancing knowledge, and also because driven by ranking and so on. I think it's time for us to, have a better balance between knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Now, skills, we already talked about a lot this thing in this forum, so I'm not going to repeat them. I think one of them is very important. Is the synergizing capacity the student have. I think this is a skill we must have for future ready graduates. Now, attitudes. Many people maybe don't talk about attitudes, but attitudes, I think, are equally important. Passion, collaboration, the growth mindset, not the fixed mindset, dissatisfaction about the status quo, but willingness to take risks and not afraid to fail, and the entrepreneurship period. I think we all know you have skill, you have all these things, you can do the work, but how well you do the work depends on your attitudes. But attitudes and skill cannot be learned just inside the classroom. So it has to be experiential learning in global exposure. So in SUTD, we have three components in this. One, we have a different pedagogy. We call it cohort-based, active, interactive, collaborative learning to foster the critical thinking, problem-solving, collaboration, communication skill. So it's a classroom, not about 200 square meters. Table chairs are reconfigurable. And we see a strong peer-to-peer learning in this kind of setting because they are not alone learning alone. So our way of teaching is hands-on, collaborative, interactive, so that we can bring theory to life. And of course, we have a lower student-faculty ratio to achieve that. But I think more importantly, you need to set aside time and space in the timetable for the student to pursue passion and interest if you want them to develop the skills and attitudes that I mentioned. So in SUTD, there's no class for the entire university on Wednesday afternoon and Friday afternoon. So effectively, we return one day to the student to pursue their interest. So the student can do research, get out of the comfort zone, develop leadership, entrepreneurship, and so on. And we also have global exposure for students. In fact, we have 100% opportunity for all. Today, we have more than 46 institutions that you collaborate. We hope we can, today, have collaboration with your university as well. Now, I talk about flexibility. We all know that it's not one size fits all. We allow self-directed pathway for students to suit their talent and interests with minors, with industry sectors, tracks within pillars. Now the fourth one is really about active and lifelong learning. And that has to be across multiple avenues, scalable to large and diverse student cohorts. Now this picture shows the typical way of our journey with university and work life. Maybe our generation, right? We study full-time undergraduate, we go out to work, and we continue to work, and we need another degree, master degree, PhD degree. We go back to the university, and then we get out. So this is normally the touch point with the university. But today, for future ready graduate, you have to learn multiple, I would say, new things multiple times. Maybe not like us. So therefore, you cannot have this kind of learning so-called platform. So, but very fortunately, we have a digital platform today. So even undergraduate full-time, students go to the digital platform. We we call this branded learning, or they go to industry for attachment. But when they go out, they need not always think about waiting for a time to do a master or PhD degree. In fact, today the university must offer something for the student in the digital platform. So the student can take courses, stackable modules, and they need not get a degree, they have enough, they get upgraded, upskilled, they can continue. But if they still want to continue, they can of course continue with a full-time, but with maybe half the time they need to do it. So we call this stackable modular masters. And of course, today we have boot camp, so students now go across multiple avenues to learn things. So university, if you want to be future ready, you have to have this kind of a platform for students to learn. And because of this, there's less pressure for a university to front load knowledge during the formal year of UG studies. So there's no need for you to learn everything. To be honest, 5 years later, what you learn will be obsolete. So let's spread out your learning through this lifelong learning. Now the fifth is about integrated partnership with industry. So it is not just about having a project with industry, but we want to work with industry with this entire domain that we talk about, education. Why can't we co-create the curriculum together with our industry partner? If we have a track, let's say in healthcare, get a doctor to teach, to develop the curriculum. They open up internship for us, they open up entrepreneurship for us, overseas exposure for us. At the same time, we talk about rescaling, upscaling. We can work together with the industry and therefore build strong capabilities for the industry. So really it's about nurturing a ready pool of technically grounded leaders, a graduate that can meet industry demand for newer workers here. So I have summed up the education here: cross-disciplinary, design, human-centered, experiential learning, overseas exposure, and have to be industry relevant. Now what about research? Now every university has great research centers and so on. We do. In 10 years' time, we have built up about 13 research institutions. But my point is, this research center institute can contribute to education very significantly. So in SUTD, we have this thing called the UROP. I think many universities have it, called Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program. So we use the free time, let the student to engage in research with these centers. So about 55% of our students participated in the Europe. And we also have SHARP program, we call the Honors and Research Program, and the Capsule program as well. All these are try to incorporate research into education. So with this, I think we can sharpen the creative thinking and problem-solving skill for students. So last but not least, how do we integrate innovation into the whole learning journey for our students? Now I think important, you must build an innovation ecosystem that I talk about is people, places, and programs. So entrepreneurship is one way, is to nurture innovators. So you can see in this timetable, we built in the entrepreneurship learning journey for students starting from term 1. They have the idea of something, they build something, and they launch something, right? And we have courses and so on. So this is really to be fully integrated with the fabric of SUTD. So today, because of our design thinking, we have a vibrant innovation and entrepreneurship culture in SUTD. 41 startups today. Right? We should not just stop there as a university. We cannot work in isolation. We have to contribute to see university to be part of a larger innovation ecosystem surrounding the university. So you look at this map here, SUTD is actually very small. And we have the airport here, we have the Changi Business Park, we have a general hospital. So we can actually look at this whole thing to develop an innovation ecosystem that really become driving the country economy. So to sum up, with these three tightly integrated, we nurture innovators, we translate research, but ultimately is the center that we want, which is our students. And we want our students to have 3 readiness: industry ready, global ready, and future ready, so that they can tackle all these challenges I mentioned in the 21st century, but also all the unknowns that we're going to face in the 21st century. So I would like to urge my colleagues in the higher education, and sorry, a few more slides. Are we on the right track? I think that is so important to ask. I think it's so. So we check, survey our students, ask them when they graduate 6 months later, how they feel about themselves. So our students significantly score above the university sector average, particularly in these 3 sectors: multidisciplinary knowledge and skills, creativity and innovation, critical thinking, and problem solving. Now, yesterday we heard about the talk that they surveyed the students. They think they are not smart enough, they are not good enough. I think our students feel they are good enough. So that's important. Good graduate employment, 94% employed within 6 months. Secure jobs across 78% of Singapore key industry. And recently, we just topped the list of emerging engineering education in the world in a report by MIT, so we are very proud of that. So I would like to urge my colleague in higher education, all here, to think big and think far, because the future is ours to create. Thank you very much.
Long Chair, Professor of Genetics. He's also served as the Vice Chairman of the Department of Genetics at Yale, and from 2003 to 2018, and the Special Advisor to the President of Yale University from 2002 to 2013. He was an investigator at the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, and then served as Adjunct Professor at Breakout Institute of Development of Biology, and Director of the so I've got so many attributes that I've got pages and pages of notes about him. So his research interest was on growth control and new genetic and biotech methods. He is a board member of Disease Models and Mechanisms and the course of concepts of basic concepts of genetic analysis at Yale, which was one of the most popular courses at Yale in the past 2 decades. He was the advisor for the best PhD thesis at Yale and for the National Excellent Doctoral Dissertation in China. Now he is the Vice President of a brand new private university in China, a very interesting experiment that he was telling me about last night, and he's going to tell us a bit about that. His title of his talk is Innovation Through Collaboration. Professor Su.
Thank you for the long introduction. And it is really a special honor to be here and to learn firsthand about how Azerbaijan, building an international university, and to learn from colleagues around the world, and who from very old institutions like Cambridge to individuals that run institutions in Asia and in Europe, and also from sort of educators who are thinking about educations and in different countries. And that's really special for individuals like myself and for my colleagues to really try to build a new university. And I tried to have Yale to help to build a university in China, and but without success. Yale decided to do in Singapore, and so we actually then I partnered with my colleagues, Professor Yibong Shi, and to do it and ourselves. And so this is Westlake University. So it's really a little bit just over a year old. And this is a new experiment. So what it is really, this is the first private research universities in China. And in a sense that we're taking all the great elements that have been experimented, worked in the West. For example, have a board of trustee, select president, vice presidents, and run the university, and have a private foundation, Westlake Education Foundation, which actually have donations that are from the private sector and support the university. And then also especially different than it also endorsed by the Chinese government, which is very important as well. So with all that, and to really to have a university and that actually we hope that it can go up and do well in a relatively short period of time. So the university, and we decided we're going to have 300 faculties. Relatively small, so that all the faculty can know each other by first name and know each other's research. And yet big enough so that in all the major areas, you can find experts to interact with. And we're going to also have a relatively small student body. And we have about, at its full size, we're going to have about 3,000 PhD students and 2,000 undergrad students. And then we have about 900 postdocs, and then we have a new campus which is under construction and will be complete in 2021, and which show the picture. So really, I also want to say a few words about where the university is located. It's in Hangzhou, and this is a really amazing city because it has over 1,000 years of tradition of culture. And really, the poet and the painters, the writers, and choose this place and left a really rich of culture and tradition for excellency. And this is also a place, it's a modern city, international city, and also a city full of different restaurants and for wonderful food and also high tech. So I urge you guys, to really to visit Hangzhou and Westlake whenever you have an opportunity. So really then, the question is that how do we have an institution in future ready? And how do we attribute universities that really are a world-class university? So then the philosophy is that what we are going after is that instead of trying to meet the requirements of the government and the needs of society, what we think is that we should really train the future leaders, which are going to lead in the society. And so that such that really, because it's very difficult to predict the future. But if our students are going to be the future leader of the world, and then they're going to be really, we're going to meet the future needs. So that's one. And the second, that is really the role of university have been rapidly evolving from transmit knowledge, preserve knowledge, create knowledge, to really change the role because transmitting knowledge, the World Wide Web, and it's doing really well. And you really don't need that, to a lot of professors doing that. And preserve similarly, and preserve much better than a library now these days in university. And create knowledge, absolutely yes. But then we think this really, the university should really train students through this first-rate research and to be individuals that are able to really to innovate and solve problems for the future. And there, we think are going to be the number one jobs for university in terms of education. So, how do we do it? We think that actually the number one job is really to have absolutely top-notch professors. Because if you look at it, and the individuals who actually make a difference in history, these individuals, very few, rarely that they come up by themselves. Almost every one of them, if you look up, they come from lineage, pedigree. And these things you cannot come up by yourself. You needed to, first-rate professors really going to actually, result in first-rate students and future leaders. And there's no exception, very few exceptions, I would say. This is a works, and this actually, in human behavior, this human society, this is the way actually the really first-rate scholars nurture the next generation of scholars. So the key is to have absolute first-rate professor, and that's what we're working on. And so we work really hard to recruiting and top-notch professors. And what we're doing is that we actually to have very high standards, and for our junior faculties, we absolutely require that they have to be the top-notch individuals, have done work leading in their field. And for senior faculties, we require that individuals who actually create a new area of research or the leaders of the field right now. And so, and we're extremely happy that we are, so far we're doing very well. And we have, over a year, we received 7,000 applications worldwide. And so far we've recruited a little bit about 90 PIs, professors. So this is then it really comes to, and how do you able to recruit, top-notch professors to come immediately? And what they need is they need individuals that can actually work with them to do research. That's why we start a graduate program first, PhD program first, not undergraduate program. Because not to have professors involved teaching, because you needed to give them supporting that they can do research, top-notch research. And that's why we're starting a PhD program first. And so we have a little bit less than 400 PhD students right now. And we will continue to do that. And then to recruiting undergrad students in several years from now. So this is what we do. And the second, we're giving them stable support, stable long-term support for research. And this is from my personal experience. When I was at Yale, I was supported by Howard Hughes Medical Institute and large sum of money. And it really does not require for research proposal. And only that reviews you 5 years later to ask a question, what you have done in the past 5 years? And if you submit something that someone else has published in similar results, then this result does not count. Because the world without you runs by itself. So the only requirement is a 5 years review, you submit 5 publications that uniquely you have done that made a difference. So this is I really believe in this philosophy. I think this really works. So that's why we're giving our professors stable long-term support so that they can concentrate really doing interesting work, focus on the important, difficult questions. And this is very, very important to attract first-rate faculty. So then another really, really important thing is that we ask the question, what we can do that institutions like Yale and Harvard cannot do, or cannot do easily, because otherwise it's very difficult to catch up, very difficult to go to the front. So what we decided is that we're going to do cross-discipline research environment. And that is very difficult to do for all the institutions. And for example, and if you want to do artificial intelligence and intelligence, have a program as such, and very difficult to do at Yale because the Department of Computer Science developed one way and the program of neuroscience developed another way. Very difficult to bring the people together. But in new institutions, we could do. We could do easily, we could make a difference. So what we have been really doing is that, for example, we designed the campus differently. And if you look at it, and we actually have academic ring connects every research building. This way, we provide physical and interaction possibility for all the professors and the researchers and students. So that during lunch, chemistry engineering professors could really run into biologists and to hear the mumbling of the biologists about their new discovery. And similarly, mathematicians and could run into computer scientists. And this is the way that these type of interactions, and if you want to specifically ask people to make an appointment to meet to discuss, very difficult. Everybody very busy. But if you have small institutions, everybody, all the professors know by first name, and they run into each other every day, this will happen. And also you can actually see everybody's seminar. And you can just walk into a seminar, potentially I'm interested, and and very difficult to do if this is a department, very different place. There was no chance that you will run into a seminar actually at a different discipline, potentially interesting. So in addition, we also start to have other things. For example, every Friday afternoon, all our faculties come together. Doesn't matter whether you're in discipline or your field, research field. Come together, we discuss news and ideas. There, we discuss what are the news in last week about a new discovery, and have an expert that knows about it, discuss this, and to other professors in different fields. And then afterwards, one professor was standing up, talk about crazy research ideas. Then have everybody else in the audience, all the other professors in different fields, to debating and to make suggestions, to critique. And that will make a huge difference. First, this serves as an education to educate the professors in other fields about what's happening and what your colleagues are up to. And the second, when you put the brains of 300 professors to work on your project, and here you can expect really unexpected results going to come out. So we are actually already started to have really unexpected results. And for example, the professors who work on superconductor and actually testing materials now, the chemistry polymer professors actually generated, which would never be tested if without this settings. So we also have other programs to support the interdisciplinary research. And we actually have students, PhD students, could be advised by more than one professor from different fields. And when you have a student advised by professors from different fields, and we're raising money to make sure those students are free. Because students are catalysts. They are really brave for interdisciplinary research. And they are even more brave than professors. They have time. They can really actually experiment different things and bring professors in different fields together. We also offer courses, not only for your own majors. We offer courses for other people from other fields, not only for students, but also professors that are interested to learn other things. And for example, we have a Science in Life, the course. This is actually have subjects that actually relate to your daily life. For example, the cell phones, and talk about this new trade wars, Huawei, US, and about 5Gs. And you hear recently about Elon Musk and this one rocket and 60 satellites, and have talked about 6G communication. But what is 5G? What is 6G? Right? And what is the science behind it? And what is the really challenge? And what are the future opportunities? So actually allow people to learn what are the different fields and what are the opportunities and the challenge. And we also have grants to specifically support interdisciplinary research, collaborations, that for people at different fields and come together to do research. And if you do research on your own field, that's great. We're fine with it. But if you actually want to do something with someone that absolutely looks like unrelated, we think that's fantastic. Because there, you could make something the first in the world. And so that we also doing core facility to enabling this. For example, if a biomedical professor and who actually want to using AI to analyze the data, it's very difficult for them to learn this by themselves. So we have core facilities that actually people help them. Not only help to informatics and AI, but also for hardcore mathematical modelers. And these are the core facilities enabling things go beyond individual scientists' the ability. And so finally, most importantly, that is a review system for promotion. And this is going to be really guidance for where the professor is going to go and how they behave. So we are actually really focused on professors that are actually going to make major breakthroughs in fundamental concepts or have made impacts on societal and impact, for example, develop new drugs to save particular patients from a particular disease, or something really, really fundamental, and to discover the fourth dimensions of our universe, for example. So it is through this type of multidisciplinary environment, and we hope that we actually can do better. And then actually traditional older schools like Yale and Harvard. And indeed, we are actually very proud we're starting to show the difference. And we have just competed with MIT for assistant professor and winning individuals, non-Chinese by the way, and joined Westlake universities. And so we hope it is through this type of thing, and with a relatively short period of time, we can really go and to the top and to make a difference. With that, and I thank you for your attention.
The Amgen Symposium at the University of Cambridge, and she was part of the Nazarbayev University research study team, where their bioremediation project won a gold medal at the 2017 International Genetically Engineered Machine Competition held at MIT in Boston, the US. Due to the Yesenoff Foundation Scholarship, she's currently planning her research internship in embryology at NYU, the other university in New York. In September of this year, she will begin her studies at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, in Canada, in the field of reproductive biology. So Almira is already a very international citizen. She's already a very future-ready graduate, and she's a member of Generation Z and Generation Z, which the rest of us are trying to understand. So Almira, over to you.
Hello everyone. I just recently graduated just a week ago. So, and today I'm really glad, I'm really honored to be here today to talk to you. And today I'm going to be talking about just my experience as a student here at Nazarbayev University, the things that I really enjoyed here, and things that really prepared me for the future, I hope, I guess. And the things that I think that might be better, that might be improved someday. So, just on point, the first things that I think I was able to, that really prepared me for the future is the ability to explore here at Nazarbayev University. I guess this is because our university, especially like my school, School of Science and Technology, have such an educational system where the students, us, we can choose some. We have some core courses and we can choose some elective courses on our choice, so that our curriculum is really tailored to our interest. For example, me, when I was studying, I took programming courses. I took some humanities and social sciences courses because I had this room, I had these electives. And these courses really helped me a lot because I think I wouldn't really start learning some programming unless this course just started. And to know about just some social constructs, about some political issues that we are having here that affect the science, that are really important in today's world with our selective courses. And I really was able to fulfill my interest in different areas, because even though I'm a biology major, I was able to implement some programming skills that I just learned from the introductory courses in my senior thesis in ecology, and hopefully I will be able to implement it in my master's thesis soon. And I think this is amazing that we have this opportunity here to explore and to be able to just integrate the different sciences like biology and humanities, biology and programming. And some people could do some minors in some, not only in sciences but also humanities, and then truly be the citizens of the world and integrate these seemingly different things and see the analogy between some phenomena in both of them, in different fields. Yeah, however, what I've noticed in other Kazakhstan universities, it's just a few universities that give such a freedom, like here, to have intellectual courses, because some universities in Kazakhstan, for example, from my hometown, I'm from Semi, it's in East Kazakhstan, and these universities do not have this freedom. This is usually like students come from the high school, they're like 16, 18 years old, and then they just have to choose their specialty. They have to choose their major, and the major is, the curricula is very fixed, and everybody is just going by the fixed path, by the fixed curricula. And I think it's very like limiting the students, and I believe that it might be one of the reasons that why most of the Kazakhstani graduates are not like working on their specialty, because they have just an opportunity to explore more, to see the different things. And I believe this is the thing that, like I was fortunate enough to study here, but in other Kazakhstan universities and maybe even in Central Asia, this is not the case. So the second thing that I really think that prepared me for the world here is to learn how to learn and to be able to implement this knowledge. Like 1 week from my graduation, it's already been 1 week from my graduation, and I don't think that I remember everything that I forgot almost all the things that I learned here, but I think it's not a big problem, because I have the skills that I have the skills to learn, to relearn, to find information, learning it, and to make it tailored to myself. For example, one of my friends can like learn by listening to some audiobooks and things, but I really like reading. It's my way. Some of them want to take notes, some of them are not. And this is the things that I think really need to, like, I really think that this is important and crucial things that I got from my bachelor's degree. And even now, like, I'm going to master's in like a more specific field in reproductive biology, and I haven't had experience in that, but it wasn't a hurdle for me, because I know how to learn. I can say that, and I will learn anything, I would say, because I know myself, I know the way of studying. And the third thing is that I think that our graduates, like university, prepared me to apply my knowledge too, because during my second year of studies, me and my other 15 students from my university, we started a student-led research project called EHELF. We represented our university at MIT at International Genetic Engineering Machine Competition, where there were like over than 300 countries, universities from Harvard, Oxford, and Yale, and everywhere. And we were like, okay, let's just try, see what we can do. And then we started doing our project and things, and it was everything by ourselves. The university gave us a big support, financial support, faculty members were mentoring us, but it was our idea, and it was like budget planning was ours, and reagents ordering was also us. It was really, truly like applying of our knowledge, our skills, not only like the scientific and things in biology, but also some like communication skills, some things that we should deal with bureaucracies and papers here in Kazakhstan. And yes, and we did it, and we got the gold medal, despite all of the things that we had here. Some of the hurdles, and it was successful, I would say. And it was an amazing experience, and it gave us the confidence that we're not, even though our university is quite new, and our country might not be well known in different, over the world, but we can do good things, big things too. And the small things that we also had, the hurdle in our university, I would say which started in my IGEM competition, like in my experience in IGEM, it was the ordering of reagents. So the thing was that even though we planned everything ahead, we planned like 6 months ahead, and we planned the budget and ordered everything, But to Kazakhstan, it takes so long to ship everything here because we order from US, from Germany, sometimes from Japan, and it takes so long. And it's not, I think it's not our fault, might be, but it's just the fault of these bureaucracies and the fault of these custom regulations. So it's really unpredictable and it really limited us. But still, we did a good job. And I hope that in the near future it might be solved. This is a thing that we might improve. The other thing is that having this confidence after IJAM competition, I went to Moderator, Japan, and I was thinking like, oh, we haven't had this, like biomedical research. We had mostly ecology because of these reagents and things. Ecology research is more like accessible and easier here at the NU. And I thought maybe it's going to be hard to work on stem cells and things, and it's going to be like completely new field, but it wasn't. It wasn't because I was able to learn, I was able to ask questions, I was not afraid, and this foundation was really encouraging, and it really helped me to get through these internships in Japan and in Germany and things, and present the posters. And now I could say that I'm fully confident going to my master's degree, and hopefully, and someday I'm going to be like a good, valid scientist, and kind of change something in this world. So thank you very much. That's it.
So look out, Vancouver, Almira is coming. Yeah. In a 10-year-old university and a 1-year-old university are able to shape things from the start. So I'll come to them in a minute, but for Charles and me, I guess, running older universities, this is a really, very old in my case, and this is a really significant issue. So the key, I think, is to involve the faculty in the understanding of why change is necessary. I think if you try and impose change, certainly in a 436-year-old university, which is where I currently work, that's a recipe for failure. But it's a question of co-creation, and I agree with what colleagues said about it being much easier in new universities than old ones. I think in Edinburgh we've been there for 430 years, so most of the staff haven't been there for 430 years, of course, but they believe that this is the way of doing things, and to come along and suggest something completely new or completely radical is sometimes very challenging. So I think you have to involve faculty in co-creation. I think you have to incentivize. Charles talked about incentivizing teaching. I think this is a really important issue about how do you reward excellence in teaching. We're quite good at assessing and rewarding excellence in research, but we're not so good at doing it in teaching. So I think a lot of it is co-creation. But Charles, what's your secret?
Secret, I don't have the solution. We struggle with exactly this question. One of the realities of our situation is that we find that our costs are growing and our revenues are flat. And that means that you have to get more productive. And so there are fiscal, co-creation is very important, where the faculty have to be excited and want to change. But then there's an existential question that occurs where you just can't meet payroll. Right? And that's honestly where a lot of universities in the United States are right now. It's tough times in higher ed. And so the faculty get more creative as their ability to remain faculty gets put under more and more stress. And so typically what we do is attempt to come up with carrots and sticks. And you have to be incredibly transparent, because they'll always say that there's a bag of money under the president's desk or under the provost's desk, and we can just give it out. But you have to be very transparent about the financial pressures that are acting on the university, the reasons why you have to change, why it's good for the students, why it's good for society, and then just take the hits, because the faculty don't like to change the way they're doing things. So it's incentives and sticks.
So I once interviewed a candidate for, when I was working in Bristol, I interviewed a candidate for a job who was proposing some very radical changes. And I said to him, how are you going to make this work? So he said, you have to have carrots and sticks. But he said, what you really need is you get a big stick, you paint it orange and pretend it's a carrot. So he got the job. He got the job. For the new universities, let's go to Professor Chong first. For the new universities, if you have faculty that don't conform and are not doing the things that you're wanting them to do, how are you going to handle that? Are you going to try and change them, or are you going to replace them, or what are you going to do?
Okay, I think for the new university like us, I think this is for the old university problem. For the new university,
it'll be your university in a few years.
Yeah, I think we are 10 years old, but because we started the university from scratch, so most of our initial hire, they are actually assistant professor. They are going through our tenure process. So those who could not make it already couldn't get the tenure, they're already out of the system. So I think we don't have so much problem like this kind of problem. But I think my experience is that we do have some senior faculty that we hire, because I do need some senior faculty, cannot be all assistant professor. So the senior faculty sometimes come to talk to me to say that I've been teaching this for the last 20, 30 years. Why should I change my style of teaching? I think the way to tell them is, this is a very different era, different type of teaching, and if you don't help out, if you don't adjust, I'm afraid, you won't be able to, I would say maybe there's something like, their bonus, their increment will get affected. Yeah. We have to use some of the so-called disincentive for them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, Professor Su, Yale is a very old university. You've got years of experience at Yale, so you can import some Yale lessons into Westlake.
Yeah, so, higher education institution, I think teaching is as important as research. And really, if you just have research, don't have teaching, really wouldn't work. I would not call that as really a first-rate higher education institution. And Yale value teaching a lot. But how are we going to do at Westlake University? So what we have been doing is that one, as Chong said, that actually really using the tenure system, so that during tenure evaluation, teaching is as important as research in terms of considering for tenure decision. So that will really give the faculties that really has directions of where they should go. Second, we really, but then they say, if we, teach, we have to compete internationally with those, not teaching. And what we have done is that we give 100% salary support, stable support, and we also have research support, such that they save in time from, writing grants to getting their salaries, etc. So this way, they can actually spend the time and for teaching. But lastly, I think most importantly is that it really, create a culture that really supporting teaching and also teach well. Because I think teaching not only just for teaching students, but really help research as well. Because from myself and others, and we really experience, when you teach, make you think differently, make you think critically and broadly. And so what we do actually at Westlake University, actually every president, vice president, we teach. And we actually teach more than our professors. And so this is probably, different from many other busy, university administrators. And we made the progress, we do. And we do a good job, actually. So with that, and I think we're going to create a culture that actually not only value research, but also value teaching. And we hopefully this will become our culture, that actually we're going to not only going to be a really first-rate research institution, but also institutions that are known for fantastic teaching.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take the bottom left question there. So this is for Almira, because Almira is the future of Kazakhstan. So what are the approaches to changing mindsets of a society like Kazakhstan, given that the country is still in the stage of decolonization? Almira, can you answer that one?
Yeah, it's kind of a hard question. I also thought about it, about the mentality and ideology of Kazakh people in general, and how to change it and how to make it fit into the modern world and to make the progress. What I would say, maybe, I believe that one of the kind of small problems that I had and most of the students that I talked to had is just to, is that they feel that from the young age they must know what they want to do. They must know. I think this came from maybe some Soviet Union at times when people were kind of forced to specialize right away from the 9th grade after the things, and this kind of being able to tell that I'm going to do this and this and this. I know I want to do this and this, and this was really appreciated, hearing from our parents and grandparents. And for now, what we were I'm and my some peers struggled with is just to change their direction. Having being going to in one direction to one, for example, major and things, and to change something, it felt a bit inflexible and impossible thing to do, and even a shame kind of thing to do, to change what you thought you want to do. But I feel one of the things that we might admit and try to change first is to change this mentality that everything should be as you planned, and some things might change, and it's okay to make mistakes and go to another direction to explore things. And how to do that, I think to integrate this kind of more in schools, to be able to choose some, in Nazarbayev intellectual school, to be able to choose some specialities, to be able to kind of rotate some, not everybody, in school, for example, sometimes you get, you must learn math, in the end, you must learn up until calculus 2, for example, which I had in my school. And for some students this was hard, and they felt themselves really worthless a bit, but they are really good at biology. So what I think is that we have to have a kind of choice what to choose from the high school, and have the responsibility on us, on ourselves, on students, to choose. And then I think it's going to be we can change this a bit mentality from the young age, and then it's going to be much easier to be more flexible and adaptable in the university and throughout the life.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, this is my first visit to Kazakhstan, so my experience here extends to a massive 2 days. But I would observe that Kazakhstan is doing a pretty good job for a very young nation, with fabulous attitudes, with great openness and great tolerance. And I think the future for the country is very bright. If I was to express a personal issue for you, I hope that you will come back. So you'll spend some time in Canada or wherever you're going to go and spend more time. But a bit like China, China's been very successful in bringing back people that have spent time elsewhere. And Professor Su is one example, spends a long career in the United States, now coming back to do a really interesting experiment in China. So I think for Kazakhstan's future, I hope that talent, you will spread your talent across the world, but I hope that at least part of it will come back, because I think that will be very important for the future of the country. Okay, can we go back to the questions? There was one that talked about just picking up on the subject of teaching. So this one that says, given that niche knowledge in academics is the focus of most unis for their faculty, how can we up the teaching, education, pedagogy level of that faculty. So we started to talk about this a little bit. So how can we incentivize teaching? This is a big topic in the UK at the moment, where we have, for the last about 12 or 14 years, had regular exercises where the universities are judged on their research excellence, and it has major implications for funding. So if you do very well, you get more government funding, and if you do very badly, you get less government funding. So this is, and it also has knock-on effects of being able to recruit the best staff and the best students. So there's been a very intense drive to research excellence. And there are some people that believe this has been at the expense of teaching excellence, because everybody's become very focused on research. Now it's swinging back the other way. Everyone's saying, okay, we have these students paying massive tuition fees and accumulating debt. We're following, we're doing what the United Kingdom always does, which is follow the United States and make the same mistakes a few years later. We're going into a situation where student debt is becoming a big issue, and so people are talking about value for money and how is my degree going to allow me to earn a lot of money and all this conversation. So there's a great deal of work going on trying to incentivize and understand and reward teaching. One approach is to have separate pathways. So you have a research pathway and you have a teaching pathway. Personally, I think that has some role, but I think it's more important that everybody teaches. And I think all researchers should teach, because often the researchers make the best teachers. So, Jim, over to you. How do you incentivize and reward excellence in teaching?
One of the key things that we do is that we offer opportunities for faculty to learn about new educational methodologies. So we have a Center for Educational Innovation that offers support for faculty that want to develop flipped classes or wish to develop online classes or just improve their overall skills in the classroom. So there's a lot of institutional support that goes to those that wish to educate in different ways or better. We also have this process that is terrifying to all faculty, where all courses have to have learning outcomes. And those learning outcomes have associated with them assessment metrics. And the faculty hate them. And yet when they actually are applied in a mature way, the faculty get to reflect on what it is they're trying to transmit to the students and whether or not the students are learning it. And that reflection results in higher quality education. So the assessment tools and the metrics are just really disliked by faculty. On the other hand, it plays an important role in advancing the educational process.
Almira, you will have had some good teachers and some bad teachers. Please don't name names. But did you feel that there was an opportunity for students to comment on who's a good teacher and who's a bad teacher, and whether you could see improvements in that way?
Indeed, we have, like, in the end of the course, like the course evaluation and teacher evaluation. It's anonymous, and yeah, I think and students really can have this school representative students. We could complain to them, and then they could they're representative of school, and then they could go forward and tell it to the administration and the provost of the schools and things. If something is really unacceptable, might be happen. So I think yes, and we also at school, at university, have this awards, student award and teacher award, and we vote for them, and then I guess this kind of way we somehow assess them. And usually students are very responsible in giving them reasons why it's giving this mark or that mark and this thing and that thing. And because in this university, I feel that we can, our voice can be heard. In our other university, I I think I couldn't say that. I think this is like, one of the few universities that this is happening. I think
Very good. Ken, what would you say from Yale and Westlake?
So I must agree with Peter that I think we should also really innovation about about improved teaching. And so what we're trying to experimenting is that if you think about scholars, right? What makes scholar interesting to do something? Actually, the number one thing is that it is if they can find this something really interesting, right? Innovation, or like research as well. So what we try to do is actually have put the component of sort of an innovation in teaching back to the hands of the professors. And so I'm actually experimenting myself. For example, not only the digital aspect of making teaching different, but also that actually, for example, brain science, I'll understand brain science, psychology, behavior, and how that actually integrate to the way of different teaching. And this way can make professors feel that actually teaching itself like research. And so this way we believe can attract it and make it more attractive rather than just a simple responsibility.
Okay, good. Professor Chong?
So I think it is important for the university to invest in, we call pedagogy innovation. So like what Chip mentioned, in our university we also have a learning science laboratory that have courses for the so-called newly recruited faculty to go through that. And we have this pedagogy innovation day as well. So we do it once a year or only twice a year, where faculty can, discuss their new way of teaching or the pedagogy that they use. And we also have a research grant. So this is actually research about pedagogy, not research about the other type of research. So we have research grant set aside for faculty to apply as well. So I think to level up this kind of teaching education pedagogy in the university, I think the university management have to make it clear that the evaluation of the faculty, like what you say, is not just based on research. I think teaching is equally important compared to research. So that's how we try to encourage the faculty, and we see good results here.
Good. So the more we can blur the boundaries between research and teaching and not see them in competition, I think is really important for this. We start a few minutes later, so we're going to take one more question and then we're more or less out of time. Can I just go back to the questions? Almira, you choose which question we're going to answer. How about this one? What are views on academic streaming specialization when students are expected to make informed career decisions early in their education? Would lifelong learning complement that system? I do feel that students are forced earlier and earlier to select their pathway. And what we're doing in universities is trying to resist that specialization for as long as possible. But what can be done to assist students in making these choices early in their education? Let's go back along the line. Professor Chong, you go first. So what can be done to assist students? Singapore is actually very good at lifelong learning, and your former organisation, NUS, has introduced this very imaginative guarantee that all NUS students will be able to come back later in their life and study something else as part of lifelong learning. So I think there are many things that can be learned from Singapore in this particular topic. But what do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, as in my presentation, I firmly believe that we should not get the students to decide on their specialization too early. I think when I was studying in Japan, like Tokyo University, they actually allow students to have this foundation 2 years of education before they choose the specialization. But of course, there's some trade-off there. You will only have 2
2 years of time to specialize. Well, other universities, if they start from first year, they have 4 years. But that was, I think, the different university, different emphasis here. So for me, is let the student have at least 1 year of this so-called exploring their interest. Because once the student decided that what they want to do, the attrition rate become very, very low, which we experience. In fact, for us, the attrition after the student choose a pillar is very, very low. I think only 1 or 2%. So that shows that having that period for students to talk to the faculty, interact with industry, decide on their interest is very important. Now for this lifelong learning, I think, as you know, Singapore has this Skill Future initiative. This is not just about every citizen get the cash voucher to pick courses that they like to take, but also the university have this continuous learning units that offer courses that work with the industry, that the industry feel that this is important skills, like some IT skill that they want the employee to have, then we conduct that, and the cost 90%, up to 90% of the cost fee actually is paid by the government. Yeah. So that is something that Singapore invests heavily in terms of this Skill Future initiative, because I think we all believe that because of the machine become more intelligent, there will be job being replaced. So how do we make sure that we control that kind of unemployment?
Yeah, I wish all governments were able to support such programs, don't you, Jim? Yes. Ken?
So I actually experienced 2 different systems when I was an undergrad in China, and I experienced the system pretty much learned from Russia. This is specialized very early and really, so that push the pass and a huge number of specialized courses. Then I have the experience at Yale and about really liberal arts education. And later I involved teaching at Yale, and I truly believe that actually the liberal art approach working better, much better. And not only for undergrad, even for example, medical doctor students and MD students at Yale. And our graduates at Yale actually graduated within the first 5 years, each year. And the MDs become doctors in clinics, they're rated. And we find that our graduates are not rated well. But then 10 years afterwards, if you rated our graduate, they absolutely fantastic, really top. Why? Because if you spend a lot of time learning even special skills, then when you graduate, you go to clinics, they can do very well. So they rate very well. But as time passes, knowledge rapidly evolving and new knowledge comes out. Then if you did not spend a lot of time learn about things in the future that could allow you to learn, but rather specialize, and then 10 years later you are outdated and you're really in terrible position. So I think this liberal arts education approach, not only for undergrad but for specialized schools, also exactly the same. Because the world is rapidly evolving and you need time to actually learn the ability to learn, as you just stated, and so well, and in your university, and this I think really going to be make a difference. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Almira?
Yeah, I have talked about a bit about specialization from the young age, and yeah, I guess this is coming from the Russia and Soviet Union times, and we're still keeping it. But yes, the part of the things I would like to focus a bit. It's not a bit education, but it's about parenting too. I think because sometimes I feel like parents at ideology here are also like pushing their children to specialize early or choose a specialty that is really highly paid or something. Like you certainly will have a job and things. And parents here, like culture in Kazakhstan, I feel like parents are really caring for their children for a long time, I guess. Even up to 24, 25 years, they might still be living with their parents and very caring about them. And I feel like this is like, because of this kind of relationships, maybe children do not feel that responsibility to kind of like usually the parents decides. Usually this is the thing. The child should be a very kind of initiative to be able to stand against their parents and stand against their rules and things. And it's not always happening. And I believe maybe some kind of awareness about the children might also have their choices and might can choose, shouldn't, like the parents should not really press their children, and this is not the thing that how it works, some kind of awareness about that I think might also help, so that students are not very pushed to meet the expectations of their parents and live their lives and not afraid of making wrong choices and specialize or not specialize. So, yes.
Very, very wise advice to all the parents in the room, including me. Chip, you have the last word.
So my feeling is that these are deeply cultural issues that we're actually facing. In the United States, we have a very permissive society and children push back all the time. And so when students come to the university, we allow transfer between degrees. It's easy to move from discipline to discipline, and as a result, students explore a great deal. And so one of the challenges in the United States is actually to get students to graduate in 4 years. In fact, in the United States, when we talk about graduation rates, it isn't the fraction of students who enter who graduate in 4 years. We report 6-year graduation rates because the fraction that graduates in 4 years is so low. All right, so at UB we have a program we call Finish in 4, where we work really hard with the students so that they will indeed graduate in 4 years. And we actually are encouraging them to choose sooner rather than later, because the sampling of different disciplines actually delays the time to degree, and sometimes drives students out of the system, and then the longer they stay in the program, the more debt they take on in order to get the degree.